Imagine a quiet little town, a simple, unassuming handyman that everyone knows. But behind his closed doors, a secret so monstrous it would literally inspire the horror villains we still have nightmares about today. Let's get into the chilling, unbelievable story of Ed Gein.
All right, so let's set the scene. We're in Plainfield, Wisconsin. The date is November 16th, 1957. And Plainfield is, one of those tiny towns where everybody knows everybody else's business. Violent crime? Basically non-existent. But on this particular day, that small-town peace is about to be completely shattered when a local hardware store owner, a woman named Bernice Warden, suddenly goes missing.
I mean, we're talking a population of just 700 people. So when someone disappears, it is a huge deal. And the first person to realize something is seriously off, it's Bernice's own son, who just so happens to be a deputy sheriff, Frank Warden. He knows his mom's routine like the back of his hand. So when he sees her store is shut down early, yeah, the alarm bells are going off big time.
So check out how fast this all unfolds. At 5 p.m., Frank Warden finds the shop closed. Just 5 minutes later, he's inside and finds blood stains on the floor, and a .22 caliber rifle is missing from the rack. By 6 p.m., just an hour after this all started, they're looking through the store's logbook and find their one and only lead, the last customer of the day, a local guy named Ed Gein.
Okay, so the sheriff and deputy warden, they hop in the car and drive out to Gein's place. And you have to picture this. It's this isolated, rusty old farmhouse, totally run down, kind of on the edge of town. There's just this weird, heavy feeling in the air. Gein's not there, but they notice the door's unlocked.
They call out his name, Ed, but nothing. So they push the door open and step inside. And the second they do, it hits them. The smell, the darkness. It was so bad, so overwhelming, that Sheriff Schley literally had to bolt back outside just to be sick. They had absolutely no idea what they were walking into.
As they pushed deeper into the house, it just got worse. This wasn't a normal crime scene. No way. This was a house of horrors. I mean, they're finding bowls made from actual human skulls, chairs covered in human skin, a lampshade made from a human face. And then they find it, a mask, a literal mask made from the face of a woman named Mary Hogan. She was a tavern owner who had gone missing 3 years before. Suddenly, another case just clicked into place.
The way it's described is just bone-chilling. The officers felt like they were standing in some alley of hell. And then they find what they were dreading. They find Bernice Warden's body, and she's been decapitated. The quiet, simple handyman from down the road was a butcher.
So, this is the big question, right? The people in town, they just knew him as Ed, the quiet, kind of weird handyman, harmless. How could that guy be responsible for this? To even begin to understand the monster, you have to go back. You have to look at the little boy who grew up in that very same house. And it all comes back to one person, his mother, Augusta Gein. Her influence wasn't just strong, it was everything. She was, for all intents and purposes, the architect of this entire nightmare.
I mean, the home Ed grew up in was unbelievably toxic. You had his father, George, an abusive alcoholic who his mother absolutely hated. But make no mistake, Augusta was the one in charge. She was this fanatically religious, totally domineering woman who believed the entire world outside her door was pure evil. And this was the lesson she hammered into her two sons, Ed and his brother Henry, every single day. The outside world, a pit of filth and sin. And women? She had a special hatred for women. She taught them that every woman, except for her of course, was impure, basically a tool of the devil. In her mind, she was the only good one left. Her control was just total. She completely isolated the boys, no friends allowed. Instead, their days were filled with her reading them the most graphic, terrifying parts of the Bible, all about sin, hellfire, and death. Now, his brother Henry, he kind of pushed back against it, but Ed, he soaked it all up. Whatever his mother said, that was the absolute truth.
So after years and years of this kind of intense psychological pressure, the very few people left in Ed's tiny, isolated world start to vanish, one by one, until he's left totally, completely alone, with nothing but his mother's voice still ringing in his ears.
And just look how fast it all falls apart. His dad dies in 1940, okay. Then, 4 years later, his brother Henry dies in a fire. But get this, the circumstances were really suspicious.
They said he suffocated, but he also had a really bad head injury that nobody seemed to want to talk about. Then, just a year after that, his mother dies. And just like that, Ed Gein is all alone in the world. His reaction to her death was, well, it was more than just grief. It was bizarre. He basically became a hermit, sealing up his mother's rooms, boarding them shut to preserve them like a time capsule, almost like a temple. The rest of the farmhouse was a disgusting mess, but his mother's rooms, untouched, sacred.
And in that isolation, his mind just broke. He got obsessed with reading about Nazi atrocities, these graphic medical experiments, and then he started hearing things. He started hearing his mother's voice, clear as day. And this delusion grew into this one all-consuming, horrifying idea. He had to bring his mother back to life.
And that obsession is what finally drove him out of that house and into the night. First stop, the local cemeteries. His descent into madness was about to become a whole lot more active.
Okay, so the logic here is deeply twisted. His thought process was basically, if I can't bring mom back, I'll become her. So he started digging up graves, specifically the graves of recently buried middle-aged women who kind of looked like its mother. He'd take their bodies back to his farm with one goal, to create a woman suit so he could literally wear their skin.
But, eventually grave robbing wasn't cutting it. He needed fresher materials. After his arrest, he confessed to killing 2 women. Mary Hogan, the tavern owner from 1954, and, of course, Bernice Worden. And the way he killed Worden was just so brazen. He walked into her store, grabbed a rifle from a display rack, and shot her with it. Then he just put her body in his truck and took her home.
So you have to wonder, what was possibly going on in his head? Well, when psychologists finally examined him, they came back with a few diagnoses. He had schizophrenia, for one. But they also diagnosed him with necrophilia, which is a sexual attraction to corpses. And that morbid, awful fascination was a huge piece of this horrifying puzzle.
You can imagine, when this story broke, it sent absolute shockwaves across America. But the story doesn't just stop with his arrest. Oh no. The aftermath, the trial, and the unbelievable legacy of horror whose crimes created, well, we're still talking about it for a reason.
The whole legal side of this was pretty complicated. At first, they said he was mentally unfit to even stand trial, so he was sent to a state hospital for the criminally insane. He's there for a whole decade before they say, okay, he's sane enough for a trial now. So in 1968, they finally have the trial. The verdict? Guilty of murder. But then, almost immediately, a second verdict comes down. Not guilty by reason of insanity. So what does that mean? It means no prison. Instead, he'd spend the rest of his life locked up in a mental health institute.
And this is where things get really wild. His cultural impact is just insane. Think about it. The quiet guy obsessed with his dead mother, that's Norman Bates from Psycho. The killer who makes masks and furniture out of human skin, that's Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs. This one real guy's real-life horrors became the blueprint for some of the biggest movie monsters of all time.
And that, right there, is what makes the story of Ed Gein so timelessly terrifying. It's not some fairy tale about a monster in a castle. It's about the very real darkness that can fester behind a normal-looking door in a quiet little town where you think you're safe. It forces us to ask that really uncomfortable question, how does unimaginable evil take root in the quietest of places?